Okay, what's the most memorable thing that you did last year in learning? What was the learning thing that you took away?
Maker 39.
Okay, so what was it about Maker 39 that you loved?
You got to sell your products.
What was your product?
Books and... Siri, come here.
Bring over your colleague. Come on over, Siri.
She was a business owner.
Yeah, tell me more about this. Thanks for checking out What's the Big Idea. In this episode, I take a trip to Design39Campus in San Diego to find out how they're doing education a bit differently.
Designed this?
You made this?
And then Mega, who's in 4th grade now, she's the one who wrote the book.
So the book was written, and then you had to make, like design a cover and market it? Oh my gosh.
Like a real book.
That's cool. I love that. Yeah. I can see
And
why
we
you're
sold
there.
out.
Yeah.
It sold out. How many copies were there?
35.
35 copies. You made 35 copies of this book? So did you have some big evening where parents could come and see all the things?
It was like during school.
It was during school.
Yeah, and when it was over, the prices were lower and like
Yeah.
It's like a real business.
I was walking around, $10.
Yeah, everything must go. Sell. All right, awesome. Thank you. It's nice to meet you. Welcome to What's the Big Idea? I'm your host, Dan Carney. You know that Margaret Mead quote? The one about how small groups of people are the only ones that have ever changed the world? It's a favorite quote in history classes and Peace Corps Facebook groups. That quote was ringing in my head as I walked out of Design39Campus, a TK to grade 8 public school in San Diego County. Created in the Poway Unified School District about 5 years ago, Design39 is a school truly doing things differently. One of its founders, Megan Power, who you'll be hearing from later, described the creation process as picking up the puzzle of school and dropping all the pieces on the floor. What Design39 has done with those pieces is really fascinating, definitely challenging for some, and an important entry into the nationwide, even global, debate about the future of school. Design39's 1,200 students learn on a beautiful new campus, with creative outdoor spaces and plentiful windows bringing an abundance of natural light into the buildings. The hallways are wide and welcoming, with student work on display and many comfy, common, collaborative spaces for breakout work. Everywhere I went, I was greeted by confident, smiling students. There are classrooms, this is an open concept, and students do things like take notes on paper and listen to teachers talk. So in other words, Design39 is still a school. They even follow standards.
I love that I'm able to cater the curriculum to what the kids want to learn.
Here's Cami Dias, a grade 3 teacher at Design39.
Grab from, and just working around that.
And how much pressure is there to grab those standards?
Here?
Here, yeah.
I think there's pressure from parents because this is different for them. And so the only anchors they have are, okay, I can find it online and these are things you need to teach my kids. Or if you don't teach them, like I'm going to have to backfill. But as in terms of staff and admin, there's not a lot of pressure because we value that, we see Common Core as the floor and then everything is building on just our soft skills and communication, all these things that can't be, compartmentalizing the standards.
Right. Okay. As you can probably hear in that clip, I had the opportunity to tour Design39 while school was in session because teachers graciously let me enter their classrooms and talk with them and their students during the course of a normal school day. Cami talked about the California state standards in a way that I heard throughout my entire visit. See, Design39 isn't running away from the standards. The school isn't trying to explain how it's kind of going along with them. It's taking the standards head on and looking for how to build on them. Middle school science teacher Abby Cavendish also talked about this.
Yeah, so we do the district like the district professional development days and everything. We use their scope and sequence. We have their textbooks, but I feel like our focus here is on real world understanding. So we use NGSS standards for each grade, but then we kind of flesh out the learning experiences that are actually meaningful for the kids. Not actually meaningful, because everyone's doing good work. All teachers are, but that's really like where the heart of our planning comes from. So.
Many conversations I've been a part of about changing schools or adapting schools for the 21st century have come to the same roadblock. What about the standards? What about the requirements? What about the things that schools have to do? Don't those limit the chances we can take? Don't those limit the changes we can make? And what I liked about how Abby Cavendish put it was that they're using the standards as this baseline, as this floor, and then looking for ways to build on it and make the learning as real world as possible. Now more with Cami, who went on to tell me about one of the defining characteristics of Design39, how the teachers use their school day. She started out talking about the flexibility she has in her work, and then went on to tell me the best anecdote I heard during my visit.
The schedule, like again, the only real time anchors is beginning of the school day, lunch, and the end of the school day. Everything in between is flexible. Of course, you have to communicate with your team and say, hey, who's going to cover for recess if my recess is like an hour later? But a good example is today. Like I had a lesson plan of multiplication and just like doing all that. And when we were talking about kindness, I was like, oh, I woke up, was like, I have all this Halloween candy left. Let's go ahead. I'm going to bring it to school and have the kids sort it. And we'll graph it in a pictograph. And then we decide, let's decide who to give it to. And let's incorporate math in it. Let's incorporate writing. We're writing notes of kindness. And then the whole day just morphed into like a whole project of that. And there's like, it's so rich and so real that the kids were just engaged the entire time. I'm like, well, you know what? My plan for today was not what I anticipated last night. So it's like stuff like that where it's that flexibility to, and I have a student teacher who's like, I don't understand what just happened. I was like, yes, I changed it.
So maybe now I'm getting closer to what really makes Design39 different. Teachers have an incredible amount of autonomy. First of all, they're not even called teachers at Design39, but LEDs, Learning Experience Designers. And the LEDs work together in an incredibly egalitarian way to plan the learning at the school. Consider, start time at Design39 is 8:55 a.m., a wonderfully late time for the students. And from 7:50 until the start time, teachers have collaborative time to work on integrated units and to use their flexibility to design strong learning experiences. Now compare that to your own collaborative time if you have any. Does it happen on Friday afternoons when teachers are drained? That's been my experience. Now all of this, Megan Power explained to me, is by design. Megan is one of the 5 teachers who took a year away from the classroom to create Design39 from scratch.
Recurring theme I've heard from the teachers I've spoken with is the trust they feel from administration. Yeah. It is authentic too.
Yeah.
It's not sound bites they're giving me.
And that's what we've and that's what we've built and created, and that culture of collaboration and communication and that trust piece. And I mean, it comes from simple things like we've got one key, and this comes from Google. So Google has one key card that opens any Google campus, and they really talk about that idea of trust. So when we were creating the school, we have one key. So that way we can get into any space.
Nobody feels like there's a space that they can't,
No,
this is my space.
It comes from that, like the windows and the glass, like some of the environment helps out with that. But it's just really that building that culture. And, as you walk around, like if we wanted to paint on a wall, we don't have to ask anybody. We just do it.
Wow.
Like we can turn this into a whole mural without having to ask anybody, ask for permission or do anything.
Sure.
So it's just that, what happens in a lot of schools is they want the teachers to trust the kids and give choice, but they don't give the teachers that same grace. So it's about changing that whole system and the structure. And it's like the admins need to be able to have choice and stuff like that, right? So it's working with district, but there's still so much you could shield, right? And then making sure that the teachers also have that autonomy to be able to do things. And then you're living in that moment and you're living that, then it's much easier to do that with your students.
Another one of the founding members, the brain trust, if you will, that put Design 39 on the map is Tom Downs. Tom teaches grade 8 humanities, and on the day I visited, he was leading a lesson on the Enlightenment with an integrated class that he co-teaches with an ELA teacher. A large group of students sat at tables of 4 as Tom explained the historical inquiry they were about to undertake. Later, when I sat down with Tom, he too discussed the freedom teachers have at Design 39.
I would say most, not all of us, but most of us are also those type of people who at our previous sites were constantly pushing against those barriers and saying like, this is a problem because we can't do really cool things because of this thing. So, and so we have control over the creation of the schedule. It's all teacher generated, and it is super complex in one way, which is because we are dealing with TK8. Sometimes there are things that do happen. So like PE is a thing that happens for everybody. So we have to figure out how to do that and how to not make that a goofy thing that just interrupts learning time, and then we have strange bits of time. So we've worked around that. We have a music program as well. So there's a couple things that are like that that directly impact us, but mostly it's lunch. There's lunch and then there's our time. So, and we've been able to divide that time up as needed. And I would say every year we've kind of tweaked what we've done based on what we kind of see happening with students. And so that's been the cool thing for us, is that we've changed how we've done some of the morning time on days when we have kind of like this extra elective. And some people have, I know 6th grade has actually taken that back as a 6th grade only time that they need for whatever. And the same thing with 7. And then 8, we're like, we have to offer some other things for these kids because it's an option for them when they go to high school to be able to jump into whatever they need to. So we continue with this. And so we adjust. Middle of last year, our 8th grade students, one class was very difficult and the other was not. And we all kept saying, like, we're exhausted by this class. Like, what is going on? So we figured out, like, what the dynamics were. And so at the semester, we're like, that's it, you guys. We're reshuffling classes. You're getting on brand new classes. And we redid their schedules, and, like, off you go. Wow. And our principal was like, who does that? Like, we do. So, but, you know, again, we didn't even stop for a moment to ask the principal if that was okay. I mean, that's because that's how things kind of roll here. It's like, you know, no, this is fine. This we're literally impacting ourselves. Great, you know. So we're going to make this happen. So so that's been really interesting. The degree that we have autonomy is huge, and without autonomy, of course, comes responsibility. And I would just say that I feel like everybody steps up to the plate.
Tom put it best. With that incredible autonomy comes a lot of responsibility, and it takes some special teachers to make it work. As Cammie noted earlier, her student teacher was dumbfounded by Cammie's opportunity and ability to adapt on the fly. Indeed, this is not the stuff of student-teacher classes. But why not? Why are flexibility and adaptability devalued in place of lesson planning and checking all the boxes? Maybe the answer says something about all of us. Most of us aren't huge risk takers. Maybe simple evolution says that we can't all be. Consider Julie Morey, who I met in her multi-age grade 1-2 classroom. I asked her where she taught before Design 39, and I did not expect this response.
So are they competent, or are they just regurgitating? So it's just education and being patient, you know.
How long have you worked here?
Since it opened. Wow. I opened the school.
And where were you before this?
I taught 8th grade.
I was going to ask that question. Say, tell Dan.
Wow, I'm an 8th grade teacher
I taught
myself.
chemistry. So,
wow.
Yeah.
So what prompted the?
There was no 8th grade when we opened the school. So I only went TK6, and there was no middle area that was available at the time. So our opening principal said, do something that scares you, I'm like,
Wow.
holy moly, this totally
That
flows
sounds
me.
terrifying.
So it was, and it was hilarious because being a middle school teacher, you can be sarcastic with the kids. I was in a double room with a first grade teacher who had taught first grade for a really long time. So I'd be, doing my thing, and she'd be like,
Risk-taking is everywhere at
So I
Design
had to learn
39.
to not be- they
From the
take everything
district's
very-
decision to take a chance on an innovative, progressive school, to the 5 teachers who gave up so much time and effort to make the school possible. Well, not surprisingly, that ethos filters down to the students. I was touring the campus with teacher Cheryl Kaiser when we wandered into Michelle Brown's classroom. Michelle is the lead ASD teacher, that's autism spectrum disorder, and she offers a workshop for middle school students. Think of workshops as an elective. As she explained, students have taken this activity and really made it their own.
So they've come up with their own ideas of things that they would like to do. Last year they wanted to do some like disability awareness presentations for kindergarten and first grade. So they developed some lessons, and we went into 6 classes. We did 6 different lessons for the kids.
Wow.
And the kids did the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, it
That's
was really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
How often do they have workshop?
Every other day.
Every other day. Okay. So you see those kids every other day.
Yeah, so it's in the afternoon for about an hour.
So a couple of things here. What a warm, caring environment this school is, that middle school students can work with ASD students and then help to educate elementary students about their work. And second, these students are not afraid to put themselves out there in a way that can be very difficult for adolescents, when peer acceptance is so important and in a situation where success is not guaranteed. That comes from the school setting the right tone and sending the right messages. You're listening to What's the Big Idea? More in a second.
What's your
Well, no, maybe 5.
5 years ago? Okay.
Probably 5.
Okay. And what's your favorite thing about the school?
Well, they probably let us learn at our own pace. Help us learn.
So what does that mean for you, learning at your own pace?
Like I can know figure out what I know and what I don't know, and actually try to learn how to do it,
Okay.
rather than it all be super synchronized and all that.
Everyone's doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
There's just a snippet of a larger conversation I had with a grade 8 student before her class began. And I love the casual metacognition she drops in there about grappling with what she doesn't know and what she does know, and demonstrating some really higher level thinking. As I traveled around the school, one of my favorite questions to ask both teachers and students was, what do you love most about this school? Why Design 39? Especially for the teachers, many of whom had come from other schools and made a very deliberate move over to Design 39. Well, here's Dana Clarkson, a grade 3 LED, with her response.
She brought me back.
And what's been the biggest difference, or what do you?
I was trying to tell her. It's interesting because I think we morph every year. I think for me, most of the growth has been around student agency, looking at how do I look at my practices and how do we get voice out? How do I look at the kids deciding how they want to show their learning and demonstrate what kind of evidence can we collect, and do I have to be the one telling you how to do it? Do I have to give you a test to know that, or are there other ways that we can actually demonstrate that I know multiplication? Does it have to be done with me giving you a fact test with times, or can we do it?
Dana there is addressing one of the central tenets of Design 39. The school is constantly tinkering with ways to measure student progress through competencies and along continuums and ways other than simply a grade. You heard her there giving a pretty passionate explanation of how student agency fits into this philosophy. All of this is possible because of an underlying foundation and buy-in from the community, the whole community, in order to make the most big moves really possible. So maybe now we've arrived. Design 39 feels so different because it was built that way. This was crystallized for me when I was speaking with Megan Power and asked her simply why more schools don't look, act, and feel like Design 39. She explained it was all about the empathy stage of the design cycle.
Reflected in schools, though. Why is this the only school in your whole district, a highly successful district, that looks like this?
Yeah.
I think it's just the system is hard to change because it's the inertia of
Yes,
decades.
and some of the things that happen is there's small technical changes that wind up happening. Like, okay, we're going to use this new curriculum, or we're going to use this technology, versus actually really looking at the structure and breaking the structures, because a lot of school is successful for what it was meant to do, and the entire structure of school that was designed is actually successful for what it was meant to do. Mm-hmm. But right now we need to change that, and it's not just about keeping the same structure and putting in these pieces. Right. It's about really burning down the whole structure,
breaking the puzzle apart.
Yeah, breaking it all apart and building up that new structure. So I think it's such an abstract concept, and there's so much instilled in but this is how we do it, and this is what's done, that is hard to break that. And how do we how do we support, and this is work that I'm doing right now, a lot more consulting, and how do we help schools or districts to relook at that and restructure things, because it's definitely possible, and it is happening in other schools around the country. We've got so many that tour through here, and they're using us as inspiration to change what they're doing. So it's definitely happening, and it's definitely changing. And I've seen over the last few years how much more rapidly things are changing. Versus it was pretty slow at first. We were that oddball school. But yeah, it's hard to change an existing system, and it takes a lot of breaking down and questioning that why.
Right.
But I remember when we first pitched this to our parent community, and this was a group of what you would consider very successful individuals, or maybe CEOs of company or that kind of stuff. But in their mind, school is always this way, and it was worked for them. And as soon as we asked them questions, it was like opening the floodgates.
Right.
They all of a sudden started asking questions. Right. The design challenge.
Imagine
a school where. Yep.
Yeah.
I just remember that shift over, and all of a sudden they started asking us questions, and I remember being like, "Yes, have you asked that to your current school?" Because they were asking us questions that they've never asked their current school.
Right.
And all of a sudden, were challenged to think. It was like the floodgates open, and it was like, oh, this makes sense. I never thought about this, and why does it have to be that way? There's a quick story that I like to share, and it's about a roast, right? So this little girl was sitting and watching her mom make a roast. Okay. And she's like 3, so they ask why all the time, right? So why are you cutting off the ends of the roast? And the mom's like, this is how we do it, this is how you're supposed to do it. Why? And so she's pestering the why. She's like, ask grandma. I've got to do this. Go ask grandma. So little girl asks grandma, and grandma's the same kind of responsible, a little more patient, right? Oh no, but this is just how we're supposed to do it. This is why we do it. But why? Constantly pestering why. Well, great grandma was still alive. So go ask great grandma. So the little girl asks great grandma. You know what great grandma says? Oh, honey, it's because my pan was small, and I had to cut the sides off so I could fit it in the pan to put it in my oven because my oven was smaller. And it's if we just do things because that's how we were taught, and traditionally that's how we've done it without questioning it or rethinking it. Think about how much food was wasted, or do you know what I mean? And never even stop to question why.
This brings me back to that Margaret Mead quote. It goes, "Never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has." Design 39 was created by a small group of dedicated teachers, supported by administration, who thought big, researched the heck out of the current situation and other models, and sought community buy-in. Many parents were at first skeptical. Design 39 now has a wait list. Tom Downs explained to me how this small group made it all happen.
Many years actually before the year being out, our previous principal at the nearby middle school was always the type of person who was pushing, encouraging us to do something bold, go for it. And so she really had no interest. We knew that a K-8 was the next thing up, because we didn't have enough for another elementary or another middle, so we needed something in between. So she had no interest until the superintendent really just kind of pitched her like, no, I really want you to do something different, like not Poway Elementary and Poway Middle and shove them together, like something else different. So she then was released from the classroom the next year. So during that year, she was able to start some of her work around like next steps. So it was during that year then that a group of us actually just started meeting with her because we were just interested in the ideas. And at that point, there was none of us were really thinking like, oh yeah, we want to go to a K-8 because we loved what we were doing. So, but we started meeting. We took actually a MOOC together through Stanford, which was the essence of the MOOC was like, if you can only change one thing in your organization that would make the biggest impact, what would it be? So we started there. And
so you're out of the classroom for a year, but you're
not at this point. At this point, this is like we're meeting on Saturdays.
Okay.
Like on our own, kind of thing. So then we kind of worked through some of that. And then in the spring of that year is when, the opportunity came to actually be hired onto this team. So it's kind of like a research and development team. And there's going to be 5 spots. So anyway, long story short on that one, then we were, then the 5 of us were selected to be out for the year. So then the following year, we actually started in the summer before we actually paid. We just started meeting together and kind of planning. So then at that point, we, in the fall, when we actually were paid to be there, we actually got more opportunities to go out and visit schools. And so we started locally and started going up towards Riverside area for a couple places because they had programs that we were interested in. So we just kind of saw bits and pieces. What we quickly learned is that there was nothing in Southern California that was anywhere interesting to us. There's bits and pieces, but schools looked pretty typical with a cool thing that they do. So then we were getting in contact with some other folks up in Northern California who talked a lot about design thinking. And at that point in time, it was kind of just barely on anyone's radar, school-wise at least. And so we first went up for to tour some schools up there, and we visited IDEO. We visited several different businesses up there, including like Box, and just to see how they work. And we actually went to a conference at the Nueva School, which we actually had. There was a whole design thinking workshop there, and the people, of course, from IDEO were there as well. So it was really kind of a cool place to kind of see it. It made us very jealous of the fact that we could have wine at school. There was all sorts of things about that school that was like, wow, that doesn't happen in public school. So it was really interesting. So we came back after visiting multiple different schools up there, and we visited some really traditional schools, but again, who had an innovative program of some sort. So we were kind of looking for all those bits and pieces. And honestly, we didn't have an idea of what we wanted the school to be. And it was kind of important for us, actually, that we didn't want it to be a thing that was like, here are this pre-made boxes, now fit in it. And so we actually came up with guiding principles, like we want to head this direction with this. And
Tom outlined a pretty riveting story there. I find the whole Design39 creation tale, if you will, to be really powerful for a couple of reasons. One, it shows how a few dedicated teachers can make an outsized impact when they have a vision and support. And second, it demonstrates the power of community buy-in. I think often in schools we see families as an obstacle to big changes because they expect education to be a certain way. What Design39 shows is that those limits can be stretched when the process is transparent and parents are given a voice. The school has 10 guiding principles. I encourage you to check them out on the school's website, and they include collaboration, design thinking, and inquiry. The dominant principle I witnessed during my visit was best summed up by grade 3 teacher Cami Dias.
I want to work here.
Yeah. So what made you want to work here? What was the draw?
It's the flexibility in allowing kids to learn differently and allowing my creative side. Because before before taking 7 years. 7 years off, I taught middle school art. And I love that I'm able to cater the curriculum to what the kids want to learn.
Design 39 is but a single school, and it swims in its own ecosystem, as Tom Downs explained to me. That is, it's a creature of its environment, its community, and the needs of the families there. Megan Power was quick to point out that their mission was never to create dozens of Design 39s. Still, I found a lot to emulate there, particularly the traits I pointed out in this episode. Any school district looking to expand could learn a lot from the process that Design 39 took and the flexibility and empowerment they baked into the school. Also, the school's emphasis on the design cycle not only promotes empathy among stakeholders, but also gives the school a beta feel. No sacred cows, and everything is up for consideration and review. If you teach in Southern California or anywhere near it for that matter, and you or your district are looking for a new way of thinking about school, check out Design 39. I'd like to thank the teachers and staff who so graciously let me see their work up close. Thanks for checking out What's the Big Idea? Today's music by Molo. The song is Que Extraño, and it's available on Tribe of Noise, a Creative Commons site that's a must for any educational multimedia project. Thanks for listening, everyone. Check us out next time.
Hoy es el día que extraño